welcome to another Team Kitchen Fable video. My name's Sean. It's been a little while since I've been on the channel, but I want to let you guys know about some things we have going on with the team. You can follow us on Twitter, which you'll find in the description. We've really been enjoying engaging with Fab Twitter. I'm sure every other content creator has told you about that. And we've also launched our Patreon, where you can engage with the team and other members of the community. And we've got some cool giveaways and ways to get exclusive content. So make sure you check that out. But I really want to get into right now probably the coolest piece of content, and I really mean that, and Justin can hear me, but you won't be able to hear him until I bring him on. I'm really excited to cover this Rhinar ProQuest winning deck list and to learn a lot from Justin, because winning a ProQuest, especially in Florida, especially with some really great players in the top 8, is exceptional. So without waiting any further, let me bring Justin on and we'll chat a little bit more. Justin, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, so we were both at this ProQuest, and we actually had never spoken to each other before. It was actually Jimmy Lee, who's also on Team Kitchen Fable. I believe he's at your locals. You guys know each other some degree, right?
Yeah, Tampa Bay guy. I'm from St. Petersburg, Florida, which is just across the bridge from Tampa, which people know better probably. But yeah, Jimmy's been he's like the original super strong player from our region, like the Tampa Bay area. Been playing locals over a year now, actually. I think almost a year, since May of last year, so over a year. And I've actually been playing Rhinar this whole time, kind of like how Jimmy's been on Bolton this whole time. So yeah, it's been pretty fun ride so far. I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Was before, I mean, I teased the deck list in the last screen that I just had, but this is a labor of love. Like, Rhinar's been your hero since day one. So tell us a little bit about what that's been like. If you want to get specific into some of the meta stuff, that's cool too. But just like, we'd love to hear your journey with Rhinar.
Yeah, it was the very first deck I ever built. I bought a box of Welcome to Wraith, and my then girlfriend, now wife, just built literal decks that we just built each of the 4 heroes out of it and just played games with them. And the first one I really actually liked was Rhinar. So I basically have not played any other deck this whole time. I did make the mistake like the first Road to Nationals. I was like feeling pretty bad about the deck, with like the old version of Chain that was like really strong back then, like right when Monarch came out. And I switched to Bravo and went 0-2, and the one time I didn't play Rhinar. So we've been back at it this whole time since then. It's, just literally goes back to first day playing the game.
Wow. Well,
yep.
You've had your time to shine, and this definitely won't go unnoticed. I mean, 42 living legend points, and you just clocked in the last 4. So
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
8% now. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's exceptional. Yeah. So let's that was also a reminder for me to go in and see like how strong Siege Chain was. Like you mentioned, like the demoralization, but.
It was pretty rough.
I won't hold us here for that. Let's just go ahead and jump into the deck list. So as you see, I've got it sorted out. We've got our reds over here. Our yellow is kind of tucked in right here, and some spicy blues, which we'll get to later. But I think a great place to start in any deck is, of course, if you want to cover the weapon you chose, how that interacts with the hero ability, and then we'll go into the armor piece.
Sure. Yeah. First thing to note here, the big one is that I use only Romping Club every matchup. I think most of the time when you see a list, it has claws. Claws have like a lot of synergy with Blood Rush Bellow, because you get the free 2 attacks. It doesn't actually like necessarily make the turn better always. It increases like the bottom worst turns you have with Blood Rush Bellows, because you always get at least the 2 attacks for the 4 extra damage. But the thing is that Club, it literally it's definitely one of the top 5 weapons in the game, possibly even like top 3. Like I think the Ice Hammer and Rosetta Thorn are the only weapons in the game that are definitely better than it. It's a 2 cost attack that, so you can even pitch a yellow on like a bad hand where it just doesn't work out for 4 damage base. Which, so if you block out your whole hand, swing for 4, it's actually a great turn. Like, getting 4 damage from one card is like above rate for what that most decks are trying to get to. And if you attack for 5 with it, we're actually talking like a one card that does 5 damage by just pitching. It only costs 2. It's honestly just like I used to have the claws, and they were something that I would work on a lot, just trying to see if I can get like the most possible damage out of a turn. But the more and more defensive I got with the deck, and the more mid-rangey it became, because everyone looks at Brute the first time, they say this is a beatdown deck. I should be just going downhill and attacking as hard as I can. But when you got this weapon that just swings for 4, it's pretty hard to beat. It's even the hammer, the Starvo's hammer and Oldham's hammer, it's costs 3 to swing. This only costs 2. It's actually it's objectively one of the strongest weapons in the entire game, and I'll stake my reputation on that, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I can tell. Like, I saw in the notes that you sent me that you're very passionate about this weapon, so I'm glad we started there. I don't think we need to go into what Rhinar does. I mean, he's even in the classic battles. Everybody's kind of caught up to date. Later on, we'll see like how much you're planning on intimidating, stuff like that, how much you trigger that ability. But I think you've got a pretty interesting armor choice, and I think that'll go into like one of your broader points. And with Rhinar that you had mentioned to me, I see that your only arm piece is Gambler's Gloves, outside of the Null Rune, right, for those arcane based matchups. But yeah, do you want to tell me about your armor setup?
Absolutely, yeah. We can do the gloves first because they're the most important piece of equipment. Well, they're the second most important, but they make the most important one way better, right? So basically, if you have the whole deck, and playing the deck and piloting the deck is all about risk mitigation, right? So I think people see the dice and they say, oh, it's just about taking big risks, and you do have to, but you have to take risks to win in general, right? Like a deck that takes no risks never wins any game. So it's all about strategic risk taking, and knowing when to take risks, and when it's better to roll the dice. And basically, Gambler's Gloves, when you roll scab skin leathers, right? Like I find people, especially in the official Discord, just trying to avoid rolling their boots, rolling the scab skin leathers like at all cost, because if you roll a 1 and then you lose your turn, right? It runs down to 0. You have 0 action points. Your turn is over, and you've probably lost the game, honestly. And like in a tight game of Flesh and Blood, which most of them are, especially like when you're playing for top 8 or playing to win the tournament, right? Like one turn is you lose if you lose a whole turn, right? It's kind of the problem that like Lexi has, where sometimes you just draw no arrows and the game's over. You've lost. It's just literally over on the spot, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I've been on a Lexi journey like this last week.
Yeah.
And I think I lost in the last 24 hours 2 of my games. I've lost just on ripping no arrows. It even happened to me in a sealed matchup 2 days ago where like I electrified and just like saw no arrows when arrows were like 40% of my deck. But I digress.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's really true though. It's so, but with the gloves, right? So with the gloves, when you roll leathers, odds are only 1 out of 6 times are you even going to roll a 1. It's if you roll leathers 3 times in a game, odds are you won't even roll a 1 the entire game. And in fact, most games you won't even roll a single 1, right? But when you do, you don't want like 1 out of 6 rolls. So say I have 6 turns against Prism, and I want to roll leathers every single turn to try to race as fast as I can, or to clear out as many auras as I can with the extra action points. Like, odds are 1 of those turns I'm going to roll a 1, right? And if I do that without Gambler's Gloves, so say I'm using the new gloves, which are very strong, by the way, the ones that can block for 1, and they give +1 whenever you roll, or a 5 or a 6, they give +1 to all your attacks. They're actually very powerful. But the issue is that Gambler's Gloves lets you aggressively roll leathers the whole game. And so the odds of actually just losing your entire turn is 1 in 36. So roll a 6, re-roll, roll a 6. That's 1 in 36. Very unlikely. Odds are, over the course of a tournament, like a, say, 9-round tournament, you're going to have it happen 0 times on average. right? So it's between 0 and 1 times on average for a whole day, right? So, and it's okay. I'm willing to lose a game one just from being. I think that the odds of Lexi doing it are actually higher, right? Of actually higher than 1 in 36, which is pretty wild considering the deck's literally rolling dice over here, right? Yeah. So basically, there's no option other than the Gamblers Club because if you're not rolling leathers, you're probably losing the game. Like you're not unlocking Rhinar's true power level if you're not accepting that there's some dice to be rolled in this game. If you're playing Rhinar, like you have to do it. If you're not rolling dice, you probably should be looking into another hero. Honestly, yeah.
Bars, honestly,
Yeah.
like I hope that I hope some people find value out of this, and maybe someday LSS will watch our channel in this video, and someone on the dev team will be like, yes, this is the way.
Right. This is the way. I think there is someone. I know there's got to be someone out there that just loves rolling dice, or these cards never would have been printed in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's get into your. So we got your main 60 here, right? And it looks like you're running 3 of everything, with the exception of 2 blue pummel, and of course you can only run 1, the Eye of Ophidia. So take us where you want us to go. Tell us what this deck's trying to do, and I will try to keep up with you. And displaying the cards and everything like that.
Yeah. The absolute like top level game plan that you're gonna be trying to do in basically every game is you just want to have high good value turns where you're getting the most out of your hands every turn. You're trying to beat that 3.5 damage per card, and you're gonna block. If they're doing serious on hit abilities, if they're just presenting raw damage, you just take it. Right, kind of that mid-range strategy, right? Like a true control defensive build, like Olden blocks everything, right? Like even if they're just presenting 5 flat damage, like a Rhinar does, or a Lexi does, or most of Chain's options or Briar's options are just like huge chunky damage that's really efficient, right? Um, this deck does not want to block those. You want to block things. You want to block in such a way that you're reducing the value of their attack. So say someone's coming in with a Lexi arrow that's going to give you a frostbite, right? You want to block that because you're getting a better rate than your block of 3 to block that and not get the frostbite, or not have an on hit from Briar during Force of Nature where she's going to be drawing cards every time she hits you. Like that's when you want to be blocking. But other than that, you want to just be looking at your hand of 4 or 5 cards with Arsenal and just trying to present the most damage you can. With whatever resources you still have available, and basically every decision in the entire deck is based around that. So, just specifically, Rolling Thunder, right, which is this card that most people I don't think even play, because you look at it and you say, okay, what if I roll a 1? It happens all the time, but it's a 1 costing card that's a non-attack action, so it plays well when you have just 1 big attack and you don't have to roll your leathers, because like I said before, rolling leathers is always a big risk, and you try not to do it, but you got to do it. You know what I mean? It's so say I have a 2-card hand here, which is just a blue pitch, a Rolling Thunder. That's it. With club, that's gonna attack for 7.5 damage on average, right? So Rolling Thunder for one card, 3.5 damage. That's above rate. A 3 block is a good card. Rolling Thunder just does 3.5 damage on average. Just a pure average, just math, right? It's a good card.
Yeah, club for 10 sounds pretty nice.
Pretty nice, yeah. I actually did it in the finals of the turn. I clubbed the Prism that I played in the finals for 10 with 2-card hand. Attack for 10, 2 cards. Pretty good. It's hard to beat that.
That's a beautiful thing. So I think you're really talking about average case math, and that's what's awesome about this interview so far is like it really is no unga bunga. It's like you are strictly saying like mathematically this is probably the correct way to be doing what I'm doing. So you mentioned that club is like your downside risk, right? It's such a good weapon, it covers your downside.
Exactly.
And so and then of course there's cool synergies like Rolling Thunder, and I'm sure that like there's nothing more tilting than seeing a swing big off a blue pitch and a tunic resource and getting pummeled. Like
it's just incredible. Yeah, I think that I don't play the red and the yellow pummels. I only play the two blue pummels. But um, basically, the fact that I'm able to like credibly represent, which a poker term, right? What you're representing, right? I'm able to credibly represent a pummel every time I attack, right? So my opponent is all, even though they know I might not have reds, I might not have yellows. They know that I have some number of pummels in my deck because I pitched the blue one on the first turn. So now they know that I'm playing pummel for the whole rest of the game. Now they have to think, what if he pummels me right here? And it makes them hedge against something that doesn't even exist in my list. I don't play the red pummels or the yellow ones, right? So yeah, it's just the threat of pummel. In my experience, the threat of pummel is much more powerful than the pummel itself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about like some cool synergies and you know the downside risk, what is like an upper limit play for this deck? Like if
Yeah.
you are just absolutely popping off, what
Oh,
does this
it's
deck
yeah.
do?
This is where the intimidate really comes in. There's like some. It's basically at the very beginning of the game and at the very end of the game, right? So, at the very beginning of the game, like you always choose to go first with this deck just because of intimidate. You're basically always able to force damage through on the first turn. If you don't, it's very unfortunate. It's okay though, it happens. But at the very first turn of the game, your goal is to just produce as many intimidates as you can to completely strip their hand, and then just present the largest amount of damage you possibly can. Which it's I've never done like a fully optimized calculation, but there's some pretty crazy hands with Blood Rush Bellow, which is the yellow card that draws two cards. It only costs one. So what you can do is if you go Blood Rush Bellow into another Blood Rush Bellow into say like pulping into like barraging beatdown into Alpha Rampage, like we're talking like that's like 27 damage, and they have their entire hand is intimidated. So so another big strength of the deck is it has these like oops I win moments, right? Where your opponent didn't even get to play the game because you just presented 27 on the first turn and stripped their whole hand, and now they begin the game at 13 and you begin the game at 40, and they might as well just scoop them up right there, right? That game is over. And the same thing happens towards the end of the game, right? You just once your opponent gets down into like the 14 to 20 range, like every time you look at your hand, you're like, okay, what if I just take it all? I could strip their whole hand and then present 20 on the final turn of the game. Like that's where like the brute energy comes in, right? Like what people think of like when they're talking about brute. It's like that very beginning of the game and the very end of the game, and then everything that happens in between that is the mid-range strategy, right?
Yeah, brute feels really great to play against when I'm at 20 plus health, but the second I go between like 15 and 20, I'm starting to sweat.
Yeah, it might
14
die
or
at any
below,
moment.
14
Mhm.
or below, I'm praying. Like that is
Yep. Mhm.
absolutely the way it goes for me. Um, so I think I really want to ask you about Iowophidia. It sprinkles its way into meta decks every here and there. Some people don't play it. Some people do play it. Um, why do you play it? What's your experience with it? And was it always in the list?
Yeah, it wasn't always in the list. I would say that basically once Wild Ride got printed, the red Go Again, it became much better. So basically, before it was only pulping. When you play pulping without Eye of Ophidia or without Fate Foreseen from the sideboard to opt one, there's always a chance that you're just gonna miss and your turn is broken now. Because if you draw a random card from the deck, even though only about 1/3 of the deck is not a 6 or greater attack, it's like just over or just under half. It's like 40%, I think, of the deck is a miss, right? So if I play pulping and just draw a non-attack action and then discard it random from my hand, there's like a pretty high chance. It's like 1 in 3. Eh, overall, like there's a significant chance I'll just lose my turn and just like only attack with pulping, even though I had this big plan to like present a bunch of damage. But Eye of Ophidia actually allows you to guarantee a hit. So if I pitch Eye of Ophidia to play Wild Ride or to play pulping, then I literally get to check and guarantee that there's a 6 or greater on top of my deck before I even it literally once again risk mitigation like I was saying before. I have a video. It's annoying sometimes that it can't block. It does come up like sometimes you'll just you've got chained down to 1 or 2 life at the end of the game and you just need to block out and wait for his husk to kill him, right? and you draw a hand with Eye of Ophidia, Pulping, and Wild Ride, and you lose. It happened against my sister actually. My sister is Sarah Vandehey. She's a strong local player here too. I think she was on stream in Vegas and all this stuff. But my more famous sister, but I was playing against her in the tournament. She was one of my losses in Swiss, and she actually top eight as well with Chain. And I actually she like presented some damage. I'm like, yep, I drew all no block. It happens. It's just part of that's flesh and blood. Sometimes you just draw a hand that doesn't work and you lose the game. It happens.
Yeah. So assuming that there's nothing else to cover here, let's go quickly into the sideboard, and then we've got some more about just general things you should know about Rhinar, the misconceptions, and then we'll get more specific into the matchup discussion. And that'll be about how you play those matchups. But here, real quick, let's talk about the sideboard and do some broad strokes about where you're bringing these cards in. And also specifically, like, are you bringing stuff out, and what are those things? So
Yep. The deck, I always bring stuff out. I always present a Queen 60. No deck, no matchup in my experience ever truly reaches a fatigue state. Against the decks that you're bringing in, the 12D reacts, or 9 in some cases, or 6 in some cases. It's basically, the question is how many of the D reacts you're going to bring in, if any. And in general, if you're going to be racing someone, you don't bring in any cards at all. So against Chain, against Prism, right? These are the two matchups where we're trying to race, or force a race in the case of Prism. Prism doesn't want to race, and neither does Chain, actually, in my experience. But Chain is trying to kill you on turn 6 or 7, right? That's the sweet spot, and that's not actually that fast a deck. Like, Briar kills you faster than that. So does Lexi. It's basically a question of how many, if any, of the D reacts are we going to bring in. The 12 D reacts, and then the one Arg Smash is, for literally just wins the game automatically against Dash. Yeah, you just destroy 3 items and it's over. Like, you can't recover from that. So you always keep the one just because it's an auto win. It's hard to beat an auto win, and Arg Smash is an auto win against Dash.
Yeah, as a Dash stan, I'm hoping people forget about that card since it wasn't printed in History Pack. Like, maybe 3 years down the line, it doesn't exist.
Right, they're just like Arg Smash is lost to the but yeah, and then the 3 points of Arcane Barrier, I don't even bring them in against the Rune Blades. The Rune Blade matchup, it's just too fast. You don't have time to be putzing around with preventing Rosetta Thorn and Rune Chant. It's purely for Kano. I didn't run into any Kanos. There weren't even any in Ocala at Goblin King. But just once again, not having any means you auto lose. And I'm trying to sand the edges of the deck, right? And that's definitely does that. So.
Yeah. So did you have those in before the Pro Tour or?
Yeah, I only had the Skullhorn. I had the I had the Skullhorn and the helmet and the hood, right? So I would bring the hood in against Viscerai back then.
Okay.
But Viscerai is not even a deck anymore. So, the Arcane Barrier one was good against 12 Rune Chants or whatever, because you could always get the full value out of it with a blue pitch. But yeah, I did not have AB3 before, just the Skullhorn.
Got it. So a respectable meta call then. You said, if 2 Kanos can make it to PT top 8, then it's time to make some adjustments.
That's right. He's actually a thing now instead of being a meme, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's just go ahead and move on into the next section. And this should cover just general Rhinar knowledge. I think this is, to me, deck techs are great. We can talk about card synergies, and the deck list itself is unbelievably clean. You talked about, ratios, efficiencies, all of that. But I think for someone just getting into it, I think just as valuable are these, these isms, these misconceptions, and, the things that we should all know about Rhinar.
Yeah. The very first thing is, like I was touching on earlier, it's not this Oonga Boonga, just pitch cards and swing club and play big attacks. That's part of it, but you really got to pick your spots, right? Like most of the time, you've really got to have like a clear strategy in your matchup. You've got to really be taking the optimal lines if you can find them, and sometimes you don't even find them. Like sometimes there's like so many potential lines because of the draw and discard, and because of like the option to roll leathers every single turn, and like maybe I'll discard this random. Maybe I'm gonna discard one of these two random cards, and if I discard the red instead of the blue, I can do this line. And if I discard the blue instead of the red, I'll have to arsenal the red because I won't have enough resources to swing club on the end. So is this line a lot going on in the lines just because of the uncertainty and how many? Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm already on number 2 here, aren't I? Yeah,
Yeah, just keep going, man. Let it
yeah,
rip.
yeah. It's just people. I think I saw an article on a major website for strategy, and it was recommending Rhinar to new players who like just like straight beat down Unga Boonga, and I'm like, that's the person writing this article does not know what they are talking about, right? It's definitely a thinking person's deck, and there's a lot to go on, and you really got to think about your odds, and if you like poker, you'll like Rhinar, in
Do
my
you,
experience, right?
do you play League of Legends at all?
I
Do
used
you,
to. I
do you
used
know
to.
Gentleman Cho'Gath?
Yes, I
We
do. Yeah,
we need a gentleman Rhinar. We need
that
we
would be
need like Rhinar in
phenomenal.
a tuxedo with
Yeah, with
like,
like a top hat and a
yeah,
monocle. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
that would be fantastic. Oh, there's actually a guy in Ocala that does customs. I'll see if I can. He actually does phenomenal customs for Flesh and Blood. His entire deck is all customs. It's what he does for a living, as far as I can tell. He's an artist who does custom cards. Yeah, he does commission too. So yeah, I
Sh-
definitely should get that.
Shout out to Christopher Hirschberger, Dwarven Palette. That's the guy.
Yeah, nice.
If I remember, this is like an unannounced plug, but if I remember Chris, I'll put it in the description, and people can check out your stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and that's number 3 here. Just like I was saying, you got to roll your leathers. You got to do it. It's that if you hit if you roll leathers and roll a 6 every turn, you cannot lose the game. It is impossible. You literally just win every time. It's one of the most powerful effects in all of Flesh and Blood. Just with the downside of losing the game automatically sometimes, which is a pretty big downside. So it ends up being fair, but you got to roll them. That's why you have the gloves. That's why everything in your deck works because of that, right? Like being able to just do Alpha Rampage with a club on the end. That's a 13, 14 damage attack. Like that's really hard to beat. Turns out. So you gotta roll them. You gotta. The more you roll them, the easier it gets to roll them. In my experience, when I used to get that big anxiety. Like when you're going all in at the poker table, or you're making a like and that now I'm just like, this is what we do, right? We blow on them a little bit and we roll the dice. It's
Yeah, the more you gamble, everybody, the more gambling becomes comfortable.
maybe not the best advice ever, but it's good advice, or maybe not the most ethical advice ever, but it's good advice.
Yeah, keep it to Flesh and Blood, ladies and gentlemen. Don't take it out. Don't take that advice outside of this game.
And yeah, I think a lot of people, they look at Phantasm on Prism and they just say that how could Reiner ever win? And when Monarch first came out and we were seeing the initial lists that were just pure beatdown, and just here's some huge Phantasms with Go Again, and that was true back then because she had no counter strategy to deal with you just having 8, 9 damage attacks in your deck, right? Alpha Rampage breaks it through her mechanisms of reducing the attack, even like the new -1 or Alpha Rampage, and Swing Big still, well, not Swing Big because it can't block, but no, Swing Big can block. That's right. Yeah, so Swing Big and Alpha Rampage still break through Phantasm, um, and it's now with the auras, though, she's just attacking you for one over and over the whole game. Maybe with like one like medium-sized 5 or 6 with an on-hit effect at the end that you usually can't even break. It's like not even worth it because you're trying to race now. It's the entire. I'd say the matchup actually favors Prism. I'd say it's probably 60-40 in Prism's favor if she's playing with with auras. And I think probably the shout out to the Rhiners from the Discord, by the way, in case anyone's watching. They would agree with me. I think that the matchup used to be great. After Everfest and all the new tools that Prism has, it's like shot her straight up to like probably the top deck in the meta. I'd say, right? She has winning matchups against both of the other best decks, against Chain, who she's able to fatigue, uh, and Starvo, who the deck was literally built to beat, right? And that's a weakened Starvo variant now. Yeah, it's actually a losing matchup, I'd say, and you have to like really know what you're doing, which once again gets on to number 5 here. People think, the main argument I've seen against not playing Mandible Claws isn't just the fact that like I was saying earlier, your big damage turns with Blood Rush Bellows aren't as good. Is that people play Mandible Claws against Prism. And the reality, though, is that because of the way the rules work, when you attack Prism's auras, the go again on the claws gets consumed anyway and doesn't trigger, right? Because the attack never resolves, and go again only resolves on attack completion, right? So you still end up having to roll your leathers anyway just to even clean up the auras. And in the new cheaper auras that she's playing, there's just 2. Sometimes she can play 2 in the same turn, and so you're still relying on rolling your leathers. You're unlikely to be able to even attack multiple auras per turn, even with the claws, because honestly, if you roll a 2 or a 3 on the dice with Scabskin leathers, you still only have 1 action point. This is just a normal turn. And you're not going to be attacking with claws. You're not going to be attacking auras with claws anyways. Then this is like half the time. You have to. I don't actually. This is a hot take maybe, but I'm allowed to make them now that I won a Pro Quest, right? I don't think that Mandible Claws is actually better than Romping Club even against Prism. I think that Mandible Claws are actually just not very good. And they're very low value. They're explosive, but it's like trying to steal wins when you should be earning them. That makes sense. And it's not what you're trying to do against even Prism, where there are people. It's stated like dogma that these are good against Prism, and I don't think they actually are, because we're trying to race, right? Like that's the strategy that's gotten me that got me to the win that I had. I raced a Prism in the finals and won. Yeah.
Dude, you were built for content.
Yeah.
That was, dude. Really great takes there, man. I can see the keyboard warriors already, right?
Yeah, just like typing up the angry comments.
Plenty of those. Like, I can't believe you would say that's not an easy matchup, or what Mandible Claws, blah blah blah. What about this combo? But I think your experience is really valid, man, and that's awesome that you're willing to stand with what's made you successful. So let's go ahead and wrap up this interview, and you've touched on some of this already, but let's just go into some of the key matchups in the meta, what we expect for the rest of ProQuest season, and kind of share a little bit about how people should be handling it should they pick up this deck or take inspiration from it.
Yeah, this is, the boogeyman. Chain is the boogeyman right now. He's always been the boogeyman. Not for long. I think he's going to get living legended pretty soon here, probably before the Pro Tour, which I have to start thinking about. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, against Chain, the old version of Chain was much faster than this new kind of more, I don't want to say mid-range, because it doesn't play like a mid-range strategy. It still doesn't really block. Right, which is like for me the defining characteristic of a mid-range strategy in Flesh and Blood is whether or not it blocks. If it blocks and attacks, it's mid-range. If it only blocks, it's control. Right, like old M and the old Bravo lists from before Starvo. But against Chain, he's trying to kill you around 5 or 6 shackles. So that's not turn 5 or 6, right? That's 5 or 6 shackles when he flips 5 or 6 cards. And that's exactly the spot where you're going to take a huge haymaker right on the chin and then finish him with Intimidate. You're going to just roll leathers as aggressively as you can, like find your leathers lines. Basically, like against Chain, you're saying I'm gonna roll leathers, and we're gonna do this. Like we're gonna go blow for blow the whole game, and I'm gonna finish. I have the better end state of the game with intimidate. Like my last turn is gonna be better than your last turn, which is saying a lot against Chain. But basically, Chain's next turn after that is gonna kill you. So you need to not let him get to that point, right? Like turn 7 for Chain, you're dead. Like no one's surviving turn 7 against Chain except for Olden. He's the only person who can, right?
Yeah, Chain's power is in those 5-6 shackle turns to say here's 2 cards, even 3 cards if I have an arsenal, right? Flipping all the damage he needs, and
with Art of War on top, and it's presenting like 25 damage, 30 damage sometimes. It's just like, you just need to. That's when you throw your tunic in front of it, right? You just need to survive with 1 life and then come back for the win. That's how you do it.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean that. Chain can't do what he wants to do if he has no cards in hand. So I think that's right. That's really good advice.
Yeah, and then Starvo. This is this was more relevant. I actually developed this strategy with my brother-in-law, who's another super strong player. He got top 32 at nationals. Brian Bisplinghoff. I've known him since we were kids. He's my sister's husband. Yeah, it's pretty. We're a good family at this game. We basically said, okay, so how is Rhinar? How am I going to beat the Starvo deck? This is like the pre-ban Starvo, right? So it's even better now, this strategy. And basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get specifically red unmovable, ideally into Arsenal, because it actually blocks for just a flat 8 out of Arsenal. So on a dominated attack, so a dominated Oakenold is only, I say only, right? It's only 10 damage, right? I think it's 10? 10. It does 8 base, right? I think that's right. So
it's 7 base. 7 base goes to 9. Yep.
Right. So you're with just unmovable from Arsenal and 1 piece of equipment, and that's even an already used skull cap or an already used scabskin leathers. You can just completely close out his attack with Oakenol, which is the strongest turn that he has, and really his entire game plan is revolving around hitting you with that big turn, right? And if you just don't let him do it, he can't win, right? Most of his turns are misses, and he's waiting for that like 40% of turns where he's like crushing you, right? Either like literally in some cases with crippling crush, right? And if you're able to get a D-React into Arsenal, even just one of the 4 D-Reacts, like Reckless Swing or the 2 0 for 4s, Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, you're able to block with a card from hand for 3. Every card in the deck blocks for 3. It's pretty incredible. And you block for another 4 from Arsenal, and now you're looking at being able to block the Oakenold with just adding 1 piece of equipment in. And basically, that's it. You just swing your club efficiently for 4, and you just set up these defenses where you just break his best turns. I actually won twice in the 2 top 8s that I got before the ban in the last season. I actually was able to block out successfully against the Galaxy Games Starvo list that they all brought. And then I played against it 3 times, and my loss in top 8 was to Chris Ray playing Starvo. He's the leader, I guess, of Galaxy Games up there in Jacksonville, Pro Tour player. But yeah, it's a really strong strategy. It really shuts him down, especially now that the deck's a lot weaker. I actually, funny story, but I was using the strategy by arsenaling a red unmovable and just waiting for my moment to block. I was able to full block a Starvo activated what's the one, the Pulverized, the card that's not played anymore because of the ban on Awakening, right? I full blocked a 14 damage Pulverized. I would dominate. I won that game, obviously, right? That was it. That was the critical turn of the game, and I had the defense that I needed to shut him down. And that's how you play it. The biggest part of the meta, Starvo, number 1 deck right now, right? In terms of population, it's just you play your D-Reacts and take it slow and block his big turns and attack and finish him off at the end. Yeah. Prism, yeah. Once again, I think I already got on this. The key here is that you gotta evaluate the early state of the game. So When she plays out, you gotta decide every single time she puts out an aura. You gotta say, um, does this uh, is this going to hurt my ability to raise her? Is this going to hurt my ability to continue going downhill and beat her? So, like for example, the one that makes shields, right? I forget. Do you know the name of that? I don't remember the exact name of that aura.
Haze bending when
Haze Bend.
yeah.
That's right. That's the one of the best cards from Everfest, honestly. Haze Bending.
That's a rare card, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
right. It's
bonkers.
not even a majestic. Yeah. You just haze bending. It literally doubles. It's reducing your clock by bringing out shields that are reducing the damage you're doing, and it's increasing their clock because they're able to attack for one every turn with those. Like that one, you got to take it out. Even if unless you're at the very end of the game, like look at that last turn I was talking about where you're looking to intimidate out their entire hand, finish them off. Like that one has to go. Same goes for like a really early Genesis, right? Genesis is a slow card. If it comes out in the mid game, you kind of just let them have it and just try to finish them off. But if it comes out like the very first turn of the game, it's going to develop too much advantage over the course of the game, and you have to take care of it. But you really got to like take it, like be dynamic, right? You gotta actually look at this, and there's no hard and fast rules here. You gotta look and say like, am I gonna be able to beat this card if it stays in play? And if the answer is yes, you just keep attacking them. You just keep going to the face, right? You just always want to be attacking her, not the auras, right? Which is contrary to the old advice. And before I made this adjustment, I was just losing every time. The conventional wisdom is you bring in your claws and you try to clean up the auras. And I had like a 0% win rate doing that. And I was like, okay, this is not working. We got to reevaluate this. Completely cut the claws from the deck. Just said we're gonna take out the worst offenders, the most powerful auras, and then we're just gonna try to kill her, right? And then, once again, I played against Prism in the finals and beat her. So yeah, and this is last of the big four right now. I think is Briar. More of like a dark horse compared to the other three. I think she had eight wins this past week, according to the data that I saw on Fab TCG on the new article. But definitely, like far and away, like the next highest was Lexi with 3. So Briar, it's basically Briar's faster than you can be, unlike these other matchups, right? So in these other matchups against Chain and Starvo and Prism, like we have like strategies. Well, not so much Starvo. Starvo is faster just because he beats the crap out of you. But Chain and Prism, they're slower, right? So you're actually able to win a race against them. But Briar, you cannot. Like she's too fast. She just prevent like super high efficiency. She's presenting just like a ton of damage every turn. What you got to do here is you got to look for just like pure mid-range efficiency, right? You're bringing in the defensive reactions. You're bringing in your just the 4s though, right? So you don't want the reckless swings here because they're not actually that efficient. Reckless swing is getting 3 damage per card, right? And you want your damage efficiency as high as you can get it. So you want your 4D reacts to try to lock out as much damage as you can. Get 4 damage per card is really a good rate. And then swing your club, you just like pure math efficiency here. Side out your things that are not less efficient, like your pulpings and your wild rides, which are they're getting 3 damage per card, but they're explosive, right? And they get in other matchups they're very powerful because they're explosive and they get intimidates and all these things. But you basically just play you're the control. There's a famous old article from Magic the Gathering called "Who's the Beatdown." It was written by Mike Flores, like an early Magic player. It was like written in like 1999. It's like one of the like landmark articles ever written in like Magic strategy history. And it was basically in any game ever played, in any customizable card game, one player is the beatdown and one player is the control. It doesn't matter if you're playing one of the most aggressive decks in the whole format. If you're slower than the other guy, you're the control. Period. Right? Like you're the defender and they're the attacker. And like even though this deck wants to be the attacker in most matchups, right? Even the in Briar is the only deck, but this is just going to be faster than you, and you cannot race, and you will. I mean, you'll win sometimes, right? Just by racing, because that's just how card games are. But like that is not the winning strategy. You want to be as efficient as you can and play into your mid-range strength, sideboard out your aggressive cards into your defensive efficient cards, and just try to take it in the late game. Same with Lexi, by the way, which is the not listed here, but I would say be the 5th best deck in the form, or the 5th most populous deck in the format right now.
Yeah. Just real quick, like, just very quickly, what's that matchup like? Is it like, are the frostbites really hindering your ability to do what you want? Like, chilling Ice Vein, is it stripping your hand? And then I'm assuming you're just defaulting back to that I have great card value strategy. Is that what's happening?
That's exactly right. Yep, you just block. She has a lot of on hits. The problem is, so basically her main problem in the matchup is club, right? So you can take one frostbite comfortably, and then just keep a blue block with your other cards. So just block with your block out with the rest of your hand. Keep one blue, a Pummel or a Primeval Bellow or whatever. Your eye, and then just attack. Just pay. Club only costs 2, right? So with one frostbite, you can still attack with it with one card. The frostbite is much more damaging to Starvo and Oldhim, right? Where it makes his hammer cost 4, which makes it a 2-card hand to attack with the hammer. Rhinar can still attack for 4 every turn with one card in his hand, even with a frostbite. So a lot of the time, like, some damage will just like bleed over, and you'll get a frostbite, and it's like, it doesn't matter though. I'm still just gonna attack back for 4. Like, playing in the semifinals, I played against Alexi, who actually beat Jimmy in the quarterfinals, right? So this is a strong player here, and I basically fatigued him. I just blocked out and swung. It's the wildest thing. You swing with club, and then they just go into the tank. Like, they don't know what to, like, it's attacking for 4, and it's like, and they're at 12 or something. Like, am I supposed to start blocking right now? But it's, it's a Lexi player. Like, Lexi does not want to be blocking on a club for 4, right? That is not where she wants to be in this game, right? Like, yeah.
All right. Well, are you going to be going to Nerdy Needs or Sunshine Games this weekend?
I'm not going to be playing. I might stop by and hang out a little bit, because all the Tampa Bay crew, like, these are like our home events, right? Like, these are our local PQs for the season. So I'll probably swing by to Nerdy Needs at least, and see what's going on. See how everyone's doing. I'm not going to actually play though. Leave the glory for someone else this week, right?
Got it. Well, if you're there, I'll see you there. And anything before we go? Are you on Fab Twitter? Anyone you want to shout out?
No, I need to get on that. So, here's a shout out to me, I guess, to get on social media properly. So yeah, I'll maybe get you that later for the description or something. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add it anytime. And dude, like, we've been at the same events. We've never really gotten a chance to chat. So this was great time. And yeah, man, congratulations again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.